Welcome back to the Ink Sink, the publishing podcast for the rest of us. I'm Annie, and I am here with my homie, Kaylee. How are you?
I am absolutely great because I'm here with you. It is
Aww.
Friday.
It's Friday.
Done working.
We just got back from holiday break, and we hadn't seen each other for like a month.
Easy
Coming
before
up,
that.
yeah.
We tried to schedule 2 different recordings, and neither of them worked out before that.
Yeah. We made it through, though. COVID-free.
Did.
The two of us.
Yeah, I mean, somehow.
Yeah.
Somehow.
We don't know.
By the grace of some higher power.
The goddess Kali, actually, because
Me.
she
Yeah,
protects
it's
you.
true. It's fair. That's fair. Yep. And so my benevolence could not shine on all of our friends.
Sadly,
but
no.
I did my best.
But everybody seems to be okay, which is good. And we hope everybody out there is also doing okay.
I wonder if that's why my biology teacher spelled my name during roll call for the 9 weeks that you...
Wait, really?
Yes.
He just refused to say your name? Was
grade
just like,
biology.
I am positive that this is not the name that I think it is, and so just spelled it out like it was a bad luck charm.
Yes.
That's hilarious.
100%. He was very old. I am not surprised.
And he's like, this is the goddess of destruction.
I
What if I
can't.
just don't look at her?
Yep. Can't offend. Can't offend.
For those of you who don't know, Kaylee's name is spelled K-A-L-I.
Which is not how you would normally pronounce that, but that is my mom got confused. She wanted the Irish or Gaelic Kaylee, which is like a big celebration, and instead she got the Hindu goddess of death and destruction.
And knowing the Irish/Gaelic people, that would have been like 16 letters.
Oh yeah,
and
no, it is.
all of like...
There's a D.
There's a D? Are you serious? Irish people, Gaelic people, what's going on with your alphabet? I'm so confused. We were gonna do a main segment this recording. We were gonna do like a whole main segment. We had a whole thing planned out, and then just it's too much news. We literally we can't do anything but news today.
Yeah, no, there is legitimately so much just over the last while since we recorded.
Yeah, obnoxious.
So this is really just here's your sort of really small micro burst of news that's relevant to the specific interests of this podcast.
Yeah, for 2022.
2022.
And we'll never have news again.
Yeah.
No, probably will.
I mean, that's certainly not true because we'll have updates on one of our topics.
Yeah, that's
as
true.
we go.
Hopefully. I mean, at this
want
point.
more info.
That leads us right in. Speaking of people announcing things that they're doing, the FBI had an announcement recently.
Dun, dun,
Kaylee,
dun.
what did they announce?
The capture of the spine collector.
Alleged.
Sorry, the alleged spine collector.
Oh, God, it's such a cool name.
And I just, again, we were talking about this over dinner, just to be clear, he does not deserve that name. He would deserve it if he hadn't been a jerk.
He was a very mean man. So this was a beta episode that we did because we were still like trying to figure out what we wanted to do with our podcast. Actually, this is one of the reasons that I wanted to start this podcast because I wanted someone to talk to about this because it's bonkers.
It is how she baited me into the podcast. 100%.
This person, at the time we said person because we didn't know it was a guy. And in fairness, this man still has not been convicted, but we're going to tell you this story with the assumption that this man was the man who did it. Has been stealing book manuscripts via some extremely
Sophisticated social engineering.
terrible ways. So you tell us the story.
All right. So this person was somehow catfishing publishers and getting manuscripts. This is taking place over years.
Yeah.
Multiple different reporters were trying to track it down, and there was no information. There was false trails laid. He took all these manuscripts, acquired them, mostly through digital theft, presenting himself as somebody from another publisher or as an independent agent for other interests where this would go very well for the publishing company or whatever. And then he did nothing with them.
No, which is the weirdest thing. He pretended to be all of these different people, hacked into their email
Multiple
accounts.
different like nationalities, languages.
And you were right. So your theory was that it was an international ring of people who were training and learning how to do these phishing
Social
attacks.
engineering, yeah, phishing tactics. It was a good way to train.
Yeah.
I think that is, if it's not, it didn't happen now, it may happen in the future.
For sure. He stole all these manuscripts. He impersonated people. And that's what he's being charged with, is felony impersonation or whatever the verbiage was. And they took him to federal prison because they're like, that's a crime. That's a real crime right there. We still don't know how the FBI got involved.
I'm thinking somebody's friend.
You think somebody's friend
wrote in? That's why the FBI. When you were like the FBI got involved, they definitely got letter bombed by like multiple major publishers or something, or a person that had significant stakes in
in the
maybe-
government.
Yeah, like one of the congressmen or something that is
Who
representing
yeah,
one of those, like that
maybe.
has like their bases in this particular state, perhaps. Something
Maybe.
like that.
My theory was the more boring theory, which was in publishing, there is someone whose job it is to acquire manuscripts before they go out. But mostly these people do it through just networking and legitimate connections and being a nice person.
So doing what this man did, but for good, not evil.
But not really, because the manuscripts that he was taking were not gonna be anything. Like, some of these were these obscure authors who had never even been published in English before. Some of these were genuinely bestsellers. One of the Stieg Larsson thrillers was stolen. Stieg Larsson, who wrote Girl with the Dragon Tattoo and that whole series. So one of those were stolen, and they're like, oh, well, it must be some kind of literary scout, and that's what that person's job would be. But they're not selling it. They're not doing anything with it. So what's happening here? And my thought was, it's just someone who's just very bad at their job and is just choosing to use illegal means. My theory was way more boring than yours. I was just like, it's just some American using Google Translate, and you're like, no, it's a sophisticated international consortium.
I was here, guys. I did my best to make this as exciting. Look, I'm here to write the screenplay, actually. If anybody wants to reach out to me, I am ready to make this.
It turned out he is international. So this guy, Filippo, I'm not going to try and pronounce his first name is Filippo. He works for Simon & Schuster, and he does have experience as a literary scout, but they're not saying whether or not that was the motive behind the crimes. He did steal these things. He didn't seem to sell them. Again, yeah, as far as we know, there's only been one hearing so far, an arraignment, and there have been no new details coming out of that. We have very, very little information. The New York Times and the AP Newswire seem to be leaning into my boring theory. Kaylee's holding out hope, I believe, that it will, in fact, become more interesting. Because, I mean, you're right.
Sell them. Maybe he's a dragon.
Maybe.
Alternate theory.
He's just hoarding them in his little cave.
That's his hoard.
Vulture, the culture magazine, dubbed him the Spine Collector. Spine Collector is just objectively a cool name.
That definitely sounds like something that would have been on Criminal Minds, for sure.
But they would have had to have been actually collecting vertebrae.
Yeah, I mean, that also tracks for Criminal Minds, frankly, but...
Criminal Minds is the universe that Criminal Minds takes place in. It was dark.
Like 12 or 15 years. It was almost as long as Supernatural, if it wasn't. That was a show also. Anyway.
Can you imagine if all of those serial killers had actually killed? The population of the United States would have been decimated by all of the Criminal Minds serial killers. It's like Murder, She Wrote, where they're the number one consistent thing about all of the murders is that she shows up and then someone immediately dies. Eventually, they would have arrested her.
Eventually, you guys, like, I love TV, but also, like, in the real world, like, don't get yourself super involved because they always look at you.
Yeah, exactly. If you are the friend who's been especially helpful, don't do that. Don't be friends with people. Bad for your health. You'll get arrested.
We've already failed.
Oh no.
We're too friendly. We already were talking about this. Our greatest strength is also our greatest weakness.
It's a problem. I mean, conceptually I'm about it, but I haven't experienced it, so I don't know. So we don't have any more information about that, but we will absolutely keep you updated. We are following this. It is one of the many lawsuits now that we are following. Speaking of lawsuits, though, we can move into this other one that was extremely interesting to me. The Maryland and New York public libraries are taking a stand against the draconian ebook publishers. You read this one when I sent it to you?
I did, and I was refreshing myself on this because I'm so supportive of the libraries fighting back against the absolutely absurd lending, especially now with some of the more recent stuff that you sent me. We're talking about with digital content making such a huge leap, the absolutely absurd amount that the libraries are required to pay for every loan, like not just for the books, like for every loan of these copies. It's insane. Like, ugh. Yeah. So I know that they vetoed the law. Do we have any other more recent updates?
Yeah. So the Maryland and New York state legislators, so your public library, heads up, is a public service, which means that it is governed by your state or municipality. And some very large library systems happen to be in Maryland and New York. So when there are issues in the library, they can just get a law changed. They can lobby their local governments to change the law. So the Maryland and New York public libraries chose to do that. They were like, we are fed up with these absolutely, I mean, draconian is really the only word.
It's
like,
legitimate.
these publishers are saying, you know, you have to pay us every single time someone borrows one of these books, and specifically digital books because they can track that. Whereas, you know, the previous rule was as long as the library could get a hold of a physical copy, they could loan it out as many times as they wanted. And now the publishers are like, no.
Again, this is a library.
It's a library.
It's not like a pirate ship that is stealing gold bullion from it. It's a library.
It's a public service. So instead of, you know, being nice and letting people read books, the publishers are like, no. But the Maryland and New York public libraries have already started this law to change these parameters and change it through legislation. But the new New York governor has vetoed legislation from the New York state legislature, but the Maryland state legislature is still moving forward with theirs. So the court date for the challenge in Maryland is being set for February, and I believe the legislature for New York in the next session will vote on it again. Obviously, I'm a shill for the library. I will forever be telling people that you should be using your library. You should be, if you don't know if your library has digital apps that you can rent ebooks through, go check it out. They probably do. Overdrive, which is our next story, is doing incredibly well. In 2020 and 2021, people are borrowing books, borrowing digital books, digital assets left and right, and I think that's incredible.
Also, just as a general nod, since we have our general library plug every episode, and we should, like a lot of libraries do other things. Of course, they have community enrichment. They'll loan out their rooms. They'll, you know, host activities and even like run them. The Baltimore County Library has a 3D printer. You can print 3D stuff. Like you can like print like little pieces, or like if you need like little things, or if you need little doodads. If you have the plans,
who doesn't need a doodad?
Don't you know a who's it or what's it?
A whatchamacallit?
Yeah,
a widget.
Indeed. Oh, like my little kitty. Make a little. I can print a little Widge statue.
That would be so cute.
Little Widge Minnie. Oh,
baby Widge. Widge is Kaylee's cat.
She's the best cat. She's got the she's an anime cat, you guys. She's just chubby and fluffy.
So chubby.
Even though having lost 2 pounds already from when we adopted her.
Nope.
She's just. I deeply appreciate that she's never lost her cheek fluff.
Her cheek fluff is obnoxiously adorable.
Anyway, so yeah, I deeply support the library. I do.
And of course, shout out to Publishers Weekly for keeping on top of these stories, including the Overdrive and the library stories. Of course, the wonderful pun was Overdrive has gone into overdrive. Overdrive is actually expanding into other markets now. It's going into, I believe, Australia soon, which is another large country with a large population. So.
And a dispersed population.
Yeah.
Like a lot like the US as far as it goes, where you've got a lot of empty space, and then you've got like some concentrated populations, and then you've got people dotted all around. So
public services are incredibly important. If you have not used Overdrive or their sister app, Libby, we highly recommend it. I highly recommend it. Some library services also have other apps like Hoopla, where you can get movies and TV shows through their library service. You can borrow them. Highly recommend. Again, you usually have a limit, but you have that for every library.
Yeah, it's not any different than anything else for the library. You've already paid for this. It's part of your taxes.
Yes, you are already paying for your library services. They are a part of your taxes. Use them. My goal with this podcast is to have everybody be a library shill one day. Join me. Join my ranks. Join my army.
Someday we'll win.
One day. Speaking of libraries, actually, we have another library story that is still kind of ramping up. It's not totally rolled out yet, but Kaylee, you knew that Malcolm X had been in jail before many of his more famous actions. He'd been in jail. He'd been arrested in Massachusetts in the 1940s, and he credits his time there with expanding his mind and his thinking. A modern activist named Reginald Dwayne Betts plans to use the space that was believed to be Malcolm X's cell, they don't know which cell exactly it is, to house a micro-library, and to use that space to launch micro-libraries in other prisons across the U.S. And I was very heartened by this. We hear a lot of bleak news kind of coming out of prisons in general, and especially lately. We don't have time to go into all the systemic racism and prison profit industry today, but it is nice to hear some good news coming out from these modern day activists and keeping in line with the spirit of MLK Day.
Yeah, and just generally speaking, trying to find a way to reach back to people that may feel like otherwise nobody is holding out their hand.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I it's all anecdotal, but I feel like half of the accounts that I read from prison are from people discovering that they can do other things, that they love books, that they can read, and that they love stories. And I obviously we hear other things coming out of prisons, but this is one major positive thing that I think is really, really well worth encouraging.
I would also say that, as with anything, the negative maybe is a little more sensational. So
hopefully.
Hopefully. Yes, legitimately, hopefully. So hopefully, people that just have the quiet hope that is granted from finding other paths forward in their life is happening more. It's just not happening as loudly.
I think it would be really interesting if we could get someone on the podcast who either worked at a prison library or worked in a prison education system, because a lot of prisons do focus on rehabilitation, and I have no idea how any of that works, or honestly what even goes into it. So I think it'd be really cool if we could. Moving into something a little bit more heartening, did you watch the trailer that I sent you of Denzel Washington in Macbeth?
Oh my god, guys, that looks so good. And also just love Macbeth.
It's my favorite play. Is it your favorite play?
No, I mean, to be fair, my favorite Shakespeare play.
Yeah, well,
genuinely is Twelfth Night.
Oh, okay. Well, whatever.
It is in my top 3 for
very
sure.
excited. And I love anytime I get to see Denzel doing Shakespeare.
Very good. It's absolutely.
I don't have Apple TV Plus though, so I have to wait for it, I guess, to come out somewhere else.
I'm really, yep.
But it looked really great. Frances McDormand playing a crazy lady is just high up on my list of things I didn't realize I wanted until I saw that trailer.
She nailed it. You guys, I just look up this trailer again. Denzel Washington Macbeth. It's so good. Like, if you have Apple TV, write in. Out of our 4 viewers, write in and let us know.
Please let us know how amazing it is. And if you didn't like it, also tell us. Speaking of Shakespeare adaptations, what's your favorite Shakespeare adaptation that you've ever seen?
Trevor Nunn's Twelfth Night.
Who's Twelfth Night?
Trevor Nunn's Twelfth Night.
I've not heard of this.
It's a movie.
Okay.
And so it is just a direct, timely adaptation, not like a modern times. Of course, it's like the mistaken identities, and you've got the love triangle where you've got like the female twin who's pretending to be her male brother who she thinks is dead and has fallen in love with her boss. We'll just say her boss. I'm not getting into the specifics.
Spoilers.
Yeah. And then who is in love with another lady who falls in love with this young man who is, of course, our heroine. Yeah. It's just a delightful play all around.
I love it.
Deep love.
Yeah.
One of my favorite adaptations. What about you? What's yours?
Oh, I mean, I'm boring. I'm a Kenneth Branagh stan.
That's fair.
Denzel Washington in Much Ado About Nothing, he plays the prince.
Oh, he's very good in that one, honestly. Oof. I have no issues with that. I love Much Ado About Nothing, frankly.
Young Denzel Washington, young Keanu Reeves, a young Kenneth Branagh. I mean, a young Kate Beckinsale. It's a great movie. I might go watch it again.
Legitimately hit all 3 of my top favorite 3 Shakespeare plays right now. Just FYI. So I'm in good place.
So good. Oh, and Emma Thompson.
Yeah. Support the Shakespeare Library Theater.
Yes, at the Folger Shakespeare Library, which I believe is opening up soon.
They're opening back up soon. Yeah, they're getting ready to come back. They've been open this whole time digitally and virtually.
Yes. Another library that you could support. Yes. Though I don't think that one's publicly funded.
No, it's donations.
It's private,
yeah, so feel free, get a membership, support them. They've been running, they'll do virtual things, they'll do shows, they'll do movies, and then, Q&As with the directors or parts of the cast or whatever.
And authors with Shakespeare scholarship as well.
Absolutely, yeah. So,
they also have a great podcast.
They do.
It turns out we're shills for the Shakespeare Folger Library as well.
But it's another library, so it's fine.
General library shills.
Yeah, that's right.
We're on brand.
As I said, we're not off target.
Here's another thing we actually we talked about in a beta episode that our listeners never knew about. Public domain, Kaylee. Public Domain Day.
Yes.
January 1st, Winnie the Pooh, the first book, came into the public domain. You can use the Winnie the Pooh character in now public works.
The things that were coming into public domain in the first movies that had audio.
Yeah.
That was so cool. And like the music that's coming into public domain, like we're going to see so many amazing reimaginings or collaborations with like jazz and blues coming up. I'm just really pumped about what I was looking at. Like that's so amazing. I'm really excited to see that.
Yeah, and shout out to Smithsonian Mag for compiling this very large list that I sent you. And I don't know if you saw some of those like old radio show recordings. And this decade actually, I believe Steamboat Willie is coming up this decade as well. So we're
going to get another fight with the mouse.
Maybe. We don't know. I mean, it seems like they might be partially giving up at least. They haven't done anything in a while.
We'll see. I'll believe it when I see it.
Yeah. I mean, in fairness, Steamboat Willie is not the same as the Mickey Mouse character, so we'll see.
We'll see. I'm so much less optimistic on this particular topic.
We'll see where it goes. I mean, this is going to be a really interesting couple years for the public domain. Every year, January 1st is Public Domain Day, so we will definitely be talking about this again in our next year's mega January news episode.
Recap.
Moving forward, I don't know if you guys know this, in America, there's a bit of a culture war going on. Social conservatism and social liberalism are at each other's throats, more or less, and probably will be for the next little while. But honestly, I think that this is, not really a function of the times, because I feel like through all of history, people have tried to support their ideologies through kids' education. I think this is more of the same of that, though I don't want to downplay it. It's they want to have control over what kids are learning about.
The issue is real, it's just not new.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, that's a better way to say that. The latest news, this comes from The Guardian with some backup from Publishers Weekly. Apparently, there are parents groups getting organized through social media to push out LGBTQ plus works and works on systemic racism. In libraries, parents are saying, no, you can't even talk about queer people because that counts as porn. And obviously, Kaylee and I are not sitting here saying that porn should be in school libraries. However, I don't believe that a mention of a gay person,
the fact that gay people exist,
I don't think
and
that's
have
porn.
Existed for the entirety of human history. I am taking a hard stand. Gay people have always existed. If you don't, Sandra, agree. I'm not sorry. Get wrecked.
Sandra. Oh, that's right, everybody. Kaylee does not subscribe to the Karen philosophy.
My auntie is a lovely lady, and her name is Karen.
Therefore, F Sandra.
That's right.
I think last time it was Susan.
Yeah, you know what?
We're going to roll through all of them.
You got it.
Next time, Lisa. After that, it's going to be just Meredith.
You know what? We're going to give everybody a turn.
Yeah, we're equal opportunity haters around here.
if nothing else.
The latest news is that the Coalition Against Censorship released a statement condemning all of these efforts and acknowledging that these are clearly organized efforts coming from a lot of political agitators, and they are saying that this is obviously very, very bad for society and kids in general. What did you think?
Yeah, I support their opposition. I'll wave the flag. I will take up the banner. It's trash. You're not doing this for your children. You're doing this for yourself and your moral high ground or whatever that isn't even actually a moral high ground. Like, it's just trash.
Let's move into the business world. The cutthroat business world instead of the cutthroat politics.
Less depressing.
Actually, yeah, there's tons of good news coming out of the business and publishing. I'm going to go through these kind of rapid fire just because there are a lot of them. Wattpad and Webtoon are teaming up with Viacom, CBS, Paramount Plus, and if that's not enough names for you, they are planning to smooth the pipeline for adapting the Wattpad stories onto the screen. Basically, it's just agreeing to give Paramount Plus first dibs on any adaptations that come out of its universe.
Which also just means that they're focusing more on the content that is being created there, which is, and it's, good or bad or whatever. I'm sure there are negatives to it.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of original content that is being created, and there's no way that you or somebody that you love or talk to sometimes hasn't said to you, why aren't they making new thing?
Yeah.
Whatever that thing is, new books. Why aren't they making new movies or new TV shows? Why no new video games? Like, why aren't there more original things coming out? Why is it all like rehashings or retellings? Well, now we have more options. This is, the business world is a little slow to adapt, but new avenues are great. And Wattpad is specifically not targeted, but is available and largely kind of populated by young people that are doing, certainly some of the same things, but some really radical and different things. And that's where you're going to get your new content.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously Wattpad got a big payday for this, so I'm happy to see them getting more support. It's good for those creators as well. If they ever want to go into streaming, they've got that very easy pipeline. Another deal announced between Texas Monthly and HBO, pretty much the same. HBO scooping up the rights for Texas Monthly stuff. You Kaylee, are not super into true crime, are you?
I'm definitely likelier to watch a movie over like something that's like 9 to 12 hours.
Gotcha.
But-
well, Texas Monthly has made its money by... Oh, I mean, I don't know if it's just like a lot of crime in Texas, but Texas Monthly is huge in the true crime... I don't want to call us a community, but the true crime audience of people who follow.
Texas is weird. No, and I don't mean that in like... I'm sure that there's a lot of crime, but you have, again, a lot of space. And as a people, we don't deal well with nature psychologically.
No. Agreed.
If you're alone... isolated for a long time. Now, whether that means that you write a really cool horror story or you're the negative star in that really cool horror story, it can go either way, but...
Kaylee's like, I've figured out the problem with Texas. There's too much of it.
When they say everything's bigger in Texas, that's not an advertisement. That's the problem statement there.
That's the problem. Ghosts are all there. So HBO scooped up the rights for Texas Monthly. They're kind of leaning into the true crime stuff, which makes sense. HBO has been in true crime for a while. I honestly was not at all surprised.
With it, so yeah, it makes sense.
And this one isn't quite the same, but still related. Dark Horse, the comic book company that publishes things like Umbrella Academy and Hellboy, just got bought by a company called Embracer, which I had not heard of, but then I looked at their stock. They made Borderlands. They're a Swedish video game company. And this is actually a full acquisition rather than a media partnership, but it seems to be in the same vein of teaming up to do more together.
I think it'll be really cool. Like if we could, that seems like such a cool like partnership. And again, another great opportunity to see things that you know of in your comics in, you know, on maybe in a video game or something versus, or things that, you know, like video games that you love, see more content for these characters and the people that you've really grown attached to through comics.
Business people would call it a synergy.
Yes. I should have known that and it should have been on my tongue, but I'm trying to not be that person.
You're failing as a business person today, Kaylee.
Yeah, that's right. Oh no, I ruined it. We were doing so well too.
Elsewhere in the business world, more and more consolidation. Vox just bought up Group 9. Group 9 is the company behind the social media video things that you see all over, the Dodo, and now this. If you're on Facebook or Instagram, they're the little micro documentaries that you see. And this is a little bit of inside business jargon. I don't know if you had the same analysis, but usually when you see a lot of consolidation like this, it's a sign that the higher ups in those companies feel that we're entering a period of growth and we're on the cusp of it. So they're like consolidating before the growth hits. So Vox and Group 9 are kind of staking their claim out on the digital news / entertainment media space.
Which jives very much with the kind of report that you had sent to me related to news engagement.
Yes, that was good transition, Kaylee. Look at you. News engagement has fallen off a cliff.
So the Vox and the Vox like merger, it really does 100% make perfect sense with things that are happening in the world if you look at it through the lens that Annie was talking about. Totally logical, not just, you know, in general, but specifically to how things have gone since the pandemic and how that's going to inform growth going forward as people try to kind of figure out what the new normal is.
But crucially, we're not in that growth just yet. As you said, news engagement has fallen off a cliff. I mean, no one really knows why, obviously, but they're blaming it on news fatigue from a rough election year in 2020, COVID fatigue. People just don't want bad news anymore, and most of the news is bad.
And if you review that article, I was very interested and I looked through it. Obviously, I looked
this
through
one was
all
from
of
the one from Axios.
But specifically for, you know, looking through Axios's content consumption analysis. So the traffic spike that was associated to the riots or whatever, when you have like these big activities that happened and then that totally fell off, because those are activities that the fact of the matter is that this is a thing that is happening and I want to know what's happening.
Yeah.
There's no real...
It's like a situational thing.
Usually at that point, you don't get a lot of discourse on the topic. It's just, I'm going to tell you what I'm seeing. Whereas otherwise, day to day, you get a lot of, well, this is what people are saying about X, Y, and Z. Whether those people are experts or not, like I'm not going to go into that, but you get a lot more of that. And we are 100% as just a people exhausted because we have to think, oh, well, this may not be correct. I need to go research that. Whereas digital consumption is a lot more easy to kind of open a tab, bookmark it, and say, I need to research this. I need to check things.
It's easier to choose to not engage.
Yeah. You can review it later and you can come back to it when you've got the mental and emotional capacity to engage with something that is not necessarily a positive thing.
I agree. Yeah, I think that's also a huge factor for it as well. And elsewhere in the industry, yes, you are hearing about unionizing everywhere. Image Comics, we've talked about Image Comics before. Yeah. Image was created as a company in response to the large comic behemoths, and I felt like it was very in line with the Image brand to have workers unionize. Apparently it wasn't. Apparently the higher-ups actually fought it. Either way, this is officially the first unionized comic book publisher in the United States. So shout out to Image. That is awesome. We are in a very rough time for workers in general right now. Again, we are recording from January 2022. The Great Resignation is still happening. People are still not really wanting to go back to work where they could die. And I think we're going to probably see unionizing picking up over the next few months/years.
Yeah, I mean, when you have yourself, you're put into a position where, like, you just have to hope that your boss, you know, is a human and not a monster. They'll make sure that you have the minimum amount of protection needed to do what you need to do to, you know, get your paycheck or whatever. There have absolutely been heartwarming stories, and there have been horrifying stories that have come out of the last few years of just worker protection that did or did not exist. So unionization, I understand that it has been abused, but any system has been abused, and there is such a greater capacity for protection. It's a matter of what are you trying to support? Punishing the people, the occasional person that abuses it, or supporting the people that need the protection? Like, you can't do both.
Other union news, Wirecutter. Have you ever used Wirecutter?
Mm-mm.
So I love Wirecutter. So you know how like you'll get like listicles online? They're like, best moisturizers for dry skin, and then it'll just be essentially like 6 ads on the page. So Wirecutter doesn't do that. They'll be like, hey, you guys asked us what the best moisturizers for dry skin are, so we rounded up these 6 specific people, and they all have dry skin, and they tested these 6 products over like 5 months, and here's not only all the price points, but all of their honest reviews and pictures of their skin. They go deep on product reviews and like get scientific with it, and then they'll publish everything about their methodology. Wirecutter is probably one of the best things to come out of the New York Times in a while.
Okay.
And it's actually one of New York Times' most valuable brands, because you can subscribe to Wirecutter separately from the Times, but it makes its money doing that in-depth research on the products. And it does, again, really, really good work. So they threw their weight around this year by striking during the holiday shopping season. And so I was not at all surprised to hear the news recently that the union had come to an agreement with the New York Times. Like, yeah, of course. I mean, if you take your number one shopping brand and say, nope, no holiday shopping for you, you're gonna come to the table pretty quickly, I feel.
Understand. Again, I just play stupid games, you win stupid prizes.
Kaylee, you are spicy today.
Capitalism's dumb. I don't know if there's a better option yet, but it's real dumb.
But I have one more rapid fire thing from the New York Times. The New York Times agreed to buy The Athletic. Yeah. Kaylee, I don't know if you know this. The story came from Bloomberg, but sports, you know, everybody's like, oh, newspapers are dying, blah, blah, blah. No. They're not. But also, extra not is sports news. Sports news has been only gaining for the past several decades. And The Athletic was one of the new media things that kind of came in and were like, we're going to steal all your local news broadcasters and put them on The Athletic, and they successfully did that. Mm-hmm. They've been trying to sell themselves for a while. Since COVID hit, there's just been...
I saw that, yeah.
They've needed to get some restructuring done, so they put themselves up for sale, and the New York Times bit, and so they're going to be taking it in. The New York Times has promised not to do any mass layoffs. I'm not really a sports fan, but I see the business sense here.
Oh, absolutely. 100%. Like it's one of, again, diversification of your market, getting into new markets, making yourself available to new markets, getting that cross stream, understanding these markets a little better when they haven't been your source or your focus previously. 100%. Yeah. I think that's very intelligent. When people say sports news or whatever is major and it's increasing, it's growing constantly, of course it is. It's the nerdery for people that don't want to admit that they're nerds. Look, our generation and younger, we're all nerds. And anybody that can rip off sports stats from somebody from the 1918 playoffs is a massive fucking nerd. They just don't want to admit it.
Yeah, I mean, our D&D is called D&D. Their D&D is called fantasy football.
It's 100% the same. Like, it's just what it is. Again, not at all surprised. Deeply committed to people enjoying what they enjoy.
Yeah, we're no judgment from us.
Yeah, it's not a surprise to me watching things grow. Like, we are who we are as a people. We evolve in certain ways. We like certain things. It's just how it's framed.
2 news stories about women being awesome in publishing.
Would one of them be about Maya Angelou?
One of them is about Maya Angelou, if you want to take that one.
Maya Angelou is going to be on the quarter, y'all.
She's going to be on a quarter! Oh, I'm so excited.
That's so
that
good.
design is gorgeous.
The design. Oh my god.
It's so Maya Angelou.
It's absolutely phenomenal. I love obviously E Pluribus Unum, of course, you know. Mm-hmm. It's so in case you should look it up, obviously, but we'll also give you some information about what we're talking about. So
we got this one from the Washington Post.
So it's Maya Angelou with her arms stretched out, and behind her is a bird in flight. Mm-hmm. And of course, Maya Angelou's biggest, or not biggest, but her breakout novel, which most people know, I would assume.
It's not a novel. It's autobiographical.
I'm sorry. Book.
Work.
Her autobiography, I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings, which is a very heart-rending, emotional, engaging piece that...
I was traumatized when I read that.
Oh, if you don't cry twice...
I was far too young to have read it when I read it, and it stuck with me.
If you don't cry a minimum of 2 times, you're a monster.
It is a tough read, but her words are... She's such a good writer.
Yeah.
R.I.P.
So she did pass in 2014, and so it is very nice to see her remembered and recognized. She, again, as somebody else had put out there, like, she was a product of the Jim Crow South, and the fact that she got to live to 2014 and see, Barack Obama in office.
That's right, yeah. I didn't even think about that. That's 100%
by
true.
Barack Obama.
That's right, yeah, she won the Medal of Freedom.
Mm-hmm. Like, what a journey through this woman's life from where she started to where she ultimately ended up. I'm very deeply appreciative and supportive of this.
Yeah. I don't think that the literary world would be what it is without her.
No, I think that she deeply impacted, and her experiences and her humanity.
Oh, yeah, 100%. Mm-hmm. Keep sparkling, Maya Angelou. We're here for you. Oh, and did you see the other side of the coin, literally the other side of the coin, is a sculptural relief designed by a woman, so for the first time being put onto the coin. It's still George Washington. It's just a slightly different design, and the design was made by a woman, and it was made back in the 1930s.
Yeah, no.
And they are finally putting it in.
Was stupid.
Yeah.
I think her design is super cool. Like, I mean, if it had to be George Washington, I'm glad it was that George Washington. Nothing against good old G, but, like, there were some problems here that we're not going to get into.
Nobody's perfect.
Exactly.
But he was our first president.
Yep.
And the other woman being awesome in publishing, for our favorite section, rounding it out, is Sandra Newman, who has been tapped by HarperCollins and George Orwell's estate to write a feminist retelling of 1984. Talk about traumatizing stories, and congratulations to her. And what an incredible honor.
This particular adaptation for 1984 looks so interesting.
Yeah. Told from Julia's perspective, who was Winston Smith's lover. If I can just read you this release from Publishers Weekly, it said it will depict the same events as 1984, only this time seen through Julia's eyes. And I can only imagine how harrowing that will be. Congratulations to Sandra Newman.
Oh, absolutely.
That's incredible. I'm so proud of her.
Very much looking forward to what she produces.
Yeah.
I'm ready to read it.
And as I said, we don't have a main section, so we're actually going to round it out with what we're reading today. And since we traditionally have a Kaylee Coda, I'm going to let Kaylee go second. So she's going to ask me what I'm reading.
Annie, what are you reading?
Kaylee, thank you for asking. I have been reading the Darth Vader, Dark Lord of the Sith series by Charles Soule.
Nice.
It is very, very good. I'm not reading the issues, I'm reading the trades as they come out. So I'm only on volume 4. And I realized why I loved this so much and why I have not particularly liked some of the other Darth Vader series before. And it is because most Star Wars comics up to now have been written for, like, a middle grade audience. And this one was written for adults. There are Sith serial killers. Vader is evil. He's evil. He's complicated, and so is Palpatine. And usually Palpatine is just this, like, cartoonish cackling man in the background. But in this one, he's got depth and he's got complexity, and so does Vader. I've read all the trades so far, The author, Charles Soule, has also written a Poe Dameron series, which I am probably going to jump into next because I have decided that I love this person.
Perfect. I mean, honestly, legitimately fair.
Yeah.
Find a good author and
You just
jump on
read
board.
them to death, and
Yep.
then find out that they're horrible people and hate them forever.
It's tragic.
Speaking of, just as a tease, we are probably next week going to go into separating the art from the artist for all those of you who are not asking us
The sheer
About-
volume of people that
about
are
J.K.
silent.
Rowling. We need to talk about it, and we are going to. Charles Soule does not need that, as far as I know, yet. So I highly recommend the Darth Vader series. I can't recommend the Poe Dameron series yet, but I probably will in the near future. Kaylee, what are you reading?
I'm actually reading Gideon the Ninth. So I don't want to do another ad for it, but it is a lot of fun, to be honest. I just want to circle back. I don't know if what we had previously discussed when this particular book was on Annie's shelf, whether that actually got put into one of our...
No, I think that was another beta episode.
Okay.
We talked about Harrow the Ninth last episode,
Okay.
though, so they know more or less the gist.
All right, so I just, in case you didn't know, because, we didn't publish the part where we talked about it, Annie ended that, and then I finished the book, and it essentially ripped out my heart, stomped on it, laughed, took my wallet, and ran away. So,
I have stuff in my mouth. Can't make me laugh while I'm drinking something.
so, I feel like, there's another book that I had read, my friend recommended it to me, and she accidentally spoiled, like, a huge, very tragic...
Oh, I'm sorry, that was a spoiler, wasn't it? I apologize.
No, it's fine. A huge, very tragic plot point. And I, like, a year later, or something like that, I read the book. And again, I don't, especially about, like, media, for some reason, that's, like, the thing my mind catches. Like, I don't forget things. So I knew this was coming. And I legitimately, like, between one sentence and the next, went from laughing and, like, super emotionally, like, content and happy to just actively sobbing like a child. I imagine that's what's going to happen.
I apologize.
Thank you.
I've done this to you.
Yes, you did. So that's what I'm currently reading.
Where are you at in the book?
Again, Kindle books are weird.
Sure.
Chapter 6, maybe?
Okay.
So, yeah,
You're gonna meet
good.
Cam. Oh, you're gonna love Cam.
It's
She's
good.
so good.
I'm a big fan. I did get some books for Christmas, and I'm really excited to read physically. Like, I've been reading a lot of books, like, digitally, and I got A Wizard's Guide to Defensive Baking, which is next up on my list, because I will probably need it.
Oh, I love that title! Is it, like, in some kind of, like, series, or is
Yeah.
it just...
I believe so, yeah.
That's awesome.
And I physically own... Actually, I own 2 copies somehow. Don't ask me. I was on, like, an Amazon list, so it should have disappeared when somebody purchased.
Two
but
people
I
bought it for you?
Yes, I own 2 copies. So
That's
I'm happy
hilarious.
to give you a copy if
I
you're
will
interested.
love to read one. I mean, I can't really bake, but...
It's fiction, so I don't know that there's any full recipes included, but anyway.
Do you have a Kaylee coda for us this week, Kaylee?
Oh man. I think we had kind of already covered it. If you roll a dice, you have to be willing to fail. Now, whether that's good or bad, for instance, with the unionization, managers typically are rolling the dice that people aren't going to move forward. And frequently that is the case, which is tragic. But if you commit, if they screw you over and they say no, and you just draw the line, you go forward, you can actually get great gains, so you can succeed. But you have to be willing to fail to succeed on both sides of things. If your manager or whoever is willing to devalue your labor or your effort or your value, you need to be willing to say, then you don't get it. And that can be hard. But that's kind of the only way that a lot of people have made any progress in their stature.
Thanks for listening to The Ink Sink. I've been Annie.
I'm Kaylee.
Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and one day I'll convince Kaylee to make us a Tumblr page. We'll see you next time.